We're ready to go? Good evening. I will call this meeting of the Whitefish City Council for Monday, September 16th, 24 to order this evening at 7:10 or 11. First call to order, and next is our Pledge of Allegiance. Richard, will you lead us? I want to thank you, Richard, and on a point of personal note, should anybody be speaking and I happen to grimace badly, it's because I've got a couple of broken ribs and I can't move very well without having that happen. So don't take it personally if that happens. Next, we have communications from the public. This is a time where any member of the public who wishes to speak to council on a matter that is not a public hearing, please come forward. Name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Clayton Winans, and I am a resident. And I was speaking to the chief of police the other day because I have a golf cart and wanted to see if it was legal to drive on the street. And he informed me that at this time it was not, but he was supportive of that. And if I would like to go out and see what people thought and bring it to you, that he would be supportive of that. So I did that, and I've got signatures here only after a couple days because it was a rush because I didn't know you guys were meeting so soon. But I got that, and I got some letters from some residents also.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And is your request of us that we simply take that under advisement and see if we can make it legal on the local streets?
Well, it's all electric vehicles, right? And I noticed that you have, like, they're on the street, they're on the road, they're all over the place. And in the state of Montana, it's legal to, if your golf cart has seat belts and has all the standard stuff for on the street, then you can drive them on the street. It's just the local ordinance that we need to,
allow it for.
Right.
Yes, we got your letter, and I think there was consensus earlier today that we will probably take that under advisement shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
If you'd like to submit your letters that you have signed, we can put them over here to Michelle.
Submit those to Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle's right here.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any further public comment? Richard.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council, Richard Hildner, 104 5th Street, Whitefish.
Put them over here to Michelle. Yeah, Michelle's right here. So.
Thank you.
I'll wait. And I'll try not to tell any jokes that might cause you to laugh uncontrollably, Frank.
Oh, like that? God. I was just trying to get this silly ass chair. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jake. First, a shout out to Parks and Recreation. Thank you very much for the sharrows on the bike path just south of the Whitefish Manor and in front of my, was that you? Well, it takes both of you because it was a bike path. All right? So thank you both very much for that. I hate to say it was long overdue, but it's much appreciated. And I know that a lot of folks have been getting lost right there at that intersection, and this will help. Thank you. Secondly, 8 months ago, I came before the Parks and Recreation Board and you, as a council, with a request to re-examine the city regulations regarding block parties. At the time, I suggested the Missoula regulations as a starting point for discussion and offered to help with the review of existing regulations and the drafting of something more in line with a community-friendly approach. I left, that was in January, with the assurance that you would look into it. Thus far, I have heard nothing, and I'm hoping for an update, since fall is a time traditionally for neighborhoods to hold block parties. I think that those communities or those blocks that have held those parties in the past have ceased to do so because of the onerous nature of the regulations. And three, And I'm speaking now not only for myself, but also as a member of the Flathead Families for Responsible Growth. It's about wildfire. We've been given a gift, the gift of time to prepare for fire season 2025. With nearly 2 inches of rain in August and almost 2 inches now in September, this gift should not be squandered. We are not a fire-resilient community. Whitefish is part of the wildland-urban interface, or WUI, and an ember storm from puts our entire city at risk as the fuels change from forest to homes and businesses. In my view, we do not have the luxury of time to begin creating a more fire-adapted community. Some things that can be done now as we wait for the completion of the city growth policy. Here is a partial list that I hope you will consider. And again, it's just a partial list. We need to condemn the blighted and abandoned homes which provide fuel for wildfire and ember storms. Prohibit the use of bark as a landscaping mulch. Prohibit the use of juniper for landscaping. There is no more flammable fuel than juniper packed up against our homes and fences. New wood fences and old wood fences, the same, must not attach to houses. They become wicks, fire wicks, in the case of a firestorm, or an ember storm. Create evacuation zones and make them known. If you've followed fire evacuations, every place that's being evacuated, any time you look at the maps, they talk about evacuation by zone, but we have no zones, at least not that I'm aware of. We need to create a robust evacuation plan. We need to use and encourage WUI-adapted building materials for all new structures. We need to require mowing of undeveloped lots during fire season. This is just like having somebody drop hundreds or thousands of lit matches in the grass lots between homes for the conduction of fire. Complete a review of city building codes consistent with international WUI code. Map escape routes based on capacity, 36 feet for 2 lanes of traffic out and 1 in. However, Baker Street Bridge is only 30 feet, doesn't meet the need. The viaduct is right at 36 feet, or will be right at 36 feet. The Baker Street at the VFW is only 25 feet wide, so there's a chalk point. The consequences of inaction are grave. I'm guessing most homeowners in the city have seen their insurance rates increase because of wildfire risk. In my own example, that went up 87% this year. If first-time homebuyers can't afford to buy insurance, then affordability and the idea of affordable housing goes out the window. It becomes a pipe dream. Today's Washington Post described the toxic waste that drains into our streams and waterways when a city burns to the ground. I don't need to remind you that here in Whitefish, a river runs through it. Notice that I have said we. Action and education are the responsibility of all of us, but I'm looking to the city for leadership. We all know it's not a matter of if, but when. Will fire come to us from the west over Chicken Ridge? Will it come over Lion Mountain or from a dozen lightning strikes on the big mountain face? We just don't know. But I'm positive that at some point fire is going to come to us. There are 2 books that I think should be required reading. I'm realizing I'm probably a little bit beyond my 3 minutes, but thank you for indulging me. There are 2 books that I think should be required reading for all of us, particularly those in the city. One is Under a Flaming Sky, The Great Hinckley Fire Storm of 1894. It will keep you up at night, not only reading, but it will keep you up after you close the cover of the book. Secondly, fire weather on the front lines of a burning world, and this is what happened in Fort McMurray, Canada in 2016. 88,000 people had to evacuate. Fortunately, there was no loss of life, but they also had the luxury of 4-lane highways going north and 4 lanes of highway going south. So thank you very much for your time, and I do look for a response at some point. Thank you. I'm here to help. I'm part of the community.
Thank you, Richard, and I assure you we'll be counting on you for that help. And you can stick around at least for the board reports, and you may get a little bit of an answer to one of your questions. Anybody else in the public for public comment? Anybody online, Michelle? Okay, good. Next, communication from volunteer boards. Any volunteer boards in the audience? Any volunteer board reports from the council?
This Thursday is our, nothing on the agenda for the Community Development Board, but we do have a 5 o'clock meeting to discuss the growth policy and the initial mission statement of it, which I think is actually really important. So if you're interested, we'll be here at 5.
Great, thank you. Any other board reports? Rebecca?
The tree committee will be meeting in October to walk the new Caro road build out and plant trees at that point.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Anybody else? From the Parks Board. Funny you should ask, Richard. I raised that issue, or we raised that issue last Park Board meeting, and Maria is going to get together with Angie and see if we can't come up with a better idea. In terms of the block parties, I was more concerned, at least my discussion was more about the Halloween, which is coming up so quickly, and where we have the hordes of kids. I think we'll consult with Bridger a little bit more, but I think there's some concern about blocking those streets off that may be even less safe because we don't have the permanent Jersey barriers that we could put in to make sure somebody doesn't randomly go down there and really get somebody hurt. But we'll examine it, and we're still working on it, just so you know. We didn't forget, just slow. With that, I think we can move on to our consent agenda. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments or discussions? All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign. Matter passes unanimously. Next item after our consent agenda is our one public hearing for this evening. Actually, we have two. Resolution of the City of Whitefish, Montana, for levying and assessing. Is that right?
No, that's part of the consent agenda.
That's consented. There we go. Public hearing. Resolution, I guess it's going to be 24 dash. Help me here.
42.
42, a resolution to annex and incorporate within the boundaries of the City of Whitefish by petition and consent the property of owner of approximately 0.133 acres of land known as an unaddressed portion of Railway Street. David.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is one of our expedited annexation rezone requests, and the applicant is Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And the purpose of this is to facilitate a boundary line adjustment between BNSF property and the privately owned Walker property at 91 Rail Street that is accessed through the easement across BNSF that is adjacent to the city park there. And so after annexation, the Walker property will expand to the north up to the edge of the city beach loop and be reduced along the east further from the roundhouse landing. It'll basically, the way I heard it is it just will help have less trespassing across BNSF property to access the park. And so because they're annexing, and right now it's zoned county industrial, it's gonna go into the city limits, so we're gonna rezone it to the equivalent, which is the Whitefish WI industrial zone. So it basically meets all the criteria for our annexation rezone. The zoning is compatible with the county zoning. And I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from council? I've got one, David. Why are we annexing it at WI, given its location? What's the surrounding property?
Well, the surrounding property, BNSF is to the north. The city's bike path runs along there. And then across the river, there's residential property, but it's just a little island of private property over there. And it's annexing because the property that they're doing the boundary line adjustment with the Walker property is in city limits. So they're adjusting the boundary between BNSF property and the Walker property. So that portion that's going over to become part of the Walker property needs to be in the city because the rest of the lot's already in the city.
Right, and what is the Walker property?
It's that one piece of property that's, you have to get to by driving through BNSF property by the roundhouse and then getting back.
Right, but my question is, how is it zoned?
Well, currently, they're both zoned industrial, just one of
Okay.
them's Whitefish industrial, the other one has in the
Okay,
county.
that answers my question. Okay, thank you. Any further questions for staff? This is advertised as a public hearing. Any member of the public that wishes to speak to this matter, please step to the microphone. Not seeing any. Anybody online, Michelle? Turn it back to council for a motion. Andy?
In the name of brevity, I'm just going to say, let's approve resolution number 24-42, given the rather lengthy description that follows that. And so it is in the record, and I don't think I need to repeat it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign, and the matter passes unanimously. Yes, ma'am.
Giuseppe, were you for or against? I think there's just a little bit of a lag time, and I want to make sure that we're correct. Giuseppe, did you vote for or against that motion?
Giuseppe, can you hear me? I don't think he can hear us.
I'm texting him.
One moment for housekeeping matters. Thank you.
He voted for that, so approved unanimously.
Thank you very much. Great, thank you, Giuseppe. Next, we have communications from our city attorney.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. My report is on 63 of the packet. I'll give you guys a real brief history. I know you're all aware of this project, but for years we've been working on establishing a bike pedestrian river trail connection from the north edge of the underpass built by MDOT to the BNSF Loop Trail. It's called out in the Connect Whitefish Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan as Tier 1, which is immediate consideration. For years and years and years, we've been trying to work with Riverbend to finalize that easement on their property. We do have an easement across their property. We are just working on location and some considerable blowback from the condo owners there. In 2021, Inspiration Drive Properties, which is a predecessor in interest of Miles Investment Corporation, or LLC, applied to the city for an ACU, an administrative conditional permit to develop the property located immediately to the north. We approved the ACUP subject to 11 conditions of approval, one of which was that portion of the bike ped trail identified in their application must be installed by the developer. It was to remain open to the public but maintained by the property owners. And the actually amended plat dedicated a 15-foot bike ped easement across the property. So in early 2023, Inspiration applied to the Flathead Conservation District for a 310 permit to construct the bike ped trail. The Conservation District tabled their application several times. due in part to some, I think, misinformation on their part that we were actually involved in litigation with Riverbend, which we have not been. They ultimately submitted another application, which was denied by the FCD. FCD did approve part of their application, which had to do with, I believe, stormwater, but it did not approve their application with respect to the trail. So in the fall of 2023, we met with FWP, and they told us that they considered the segment of the bike ped trail running through Riverbend Condo Association and NWI's property to be one project. They also indicated that they might have more leeway to approve the project if the city were to apply for a 124 permit to construct the trail as one project. So at your guys' meeting held at the beginning of January, you guys provided staff direction to forward to submitting an application to FWP for a 124 permit to construct the segment of the bike ped trail as one project. So it kind of left MWI in a bad position because they can't fulfill the conditions of their conditional use permit if they don't construct a trail, but they can't construct the trail because the conservation district won't give them approval. So we negotiated an agreement. When it was brought to council, it was council's direction to basically renegotiate the agreement. The original agreement had like almost a 10-year sunset provision that if it wasn't constructed within 10 years, that they wouldn't have to basically pay for it. So, and again, as by way of background, when they bid out the project, they had this trail bid out as part of that project. So I believe it was it Watson Engineering? It was, I think it was Watson, and I think it was to the tune of about $224,000. Council's concern when we brought this agreement forward, that was like, we would like the money now, because in one way or another, we're gonna complete this portion of the trail, even if it's an alternative design than going right in front of Riverbend. So Frank and I sat down with Casey Malmquist and his attorney and tried to come to a different agreement. Casey's concern, I wish he was here, was that I really don't have the money up front until I actually sell the condos. We have not issued C of O on these condos yet. So he's been unable to sell them because we won't issue C of O. We did want to see the money up front. So Frank and I invited them to come back with an alternative proposal, which they did, which is in the packet. And it basically provides that we'll apply to FWP for a 124 permit, which we already have, treating the segment to be located on Riverbend Condo Association and NWI's property as one project. They're going to reimburse the city $204,000. Actually, I think it might be more than that. My staffing part might be wrong. The amount of the bid for the construction of the trail, and they will pay that out of the proceeds of the sale of the condos. They'll pay the city $20,000 within 10 days of the sale of the first 9 units, and $24,000 10 days after the sale of the last unit. If it's not paid in full by the time that we're ready to actually construct the trail, then they're just going to pay us the remainder. There's no immediate financial requirement associated. We knew when we are going to bid out the project, which we have to do by competitive bidding, it's going to be probably significantly higher because it's going to be several years in the future. And as we all know, bids for the city usually come out a little bit more than bids for private developers. So staff does respectfully request that you approve the proposed agreement. Again, I think it kind of satisfies our requirement that we put on the developer to construct the path when they really can't construct the path without a actual permit. So happy to answer any questions you might have, unless it's about any of the logistics of it, the engineering of it, which I will defer to my Public Works Director.
Any questions for Angie on her report? Thank you. Any questions for Angie on her report? Ben?
How come there's no C of O on those? Is that just because of this issue?
Correct. They have not complied with their conditions of approval.
So in every other respect,
Yeah.
done?
They're ready to go. They're ready to sell the units.
Okay.
So I think if we can reach this agreement and issue this C of O, we'll be getting the money sooner rather than later. But also understand that, you know, the Conservation District has put this developer in a really hard position, and it's going to cost us more to construct it. So I think the project's going to be done, hopefully, you know, before I retire.
Yeah. Well, could you walk me through what would happen if the condominiums don't sell for any reason?
Well, if they don't sell, we don't get our money. But when it comes time for us to construct the trail, when we're ready and willing, the way that I read the agreement is we'll get the money. So what Casey wanted to do is just basically phase it. So you sell one condo, give us part of the money, sell another condo. So it's just basically a phasing agreement. But if it's not paid in full by the time we are ready and willing to build the trail, then we'll still get the remainder.
Do we have any recourse to the property in the event that nothing sells and we don't get the money?
Well, I mean, if we're not going to construct the path, I guess it doesn't truly matter, right? But I don't know that I mean, the agreement, we can definitely enforce the agreement as it's written. So if they don't sell and we're like, hey, we're ready, willing, and able to build this path, you know, they'll still give us the money. And we kind of talked about it just from their tax perspective. I think how Casey, you referred to it, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, in our meeting was, okay, fine, if they don't sell, it'll be a donation. I want to phase it as I sell these units.
Okay, thank you.
There it went. So our only downside then is an escalated construction cost by the time we actually get
Correct.
building.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see that anyway. But who knows how far in the future this will be. Again, like I'm hoping FWP, and I think we talked about this at retreat, will move forward on our permit. But hopefully it's, again, before I retire.
But technically, even if we weren't doing the other section, as soon as the 124 permit came through, we could build that section, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which we would probably want to do.
probably. It would be missing, because the FWP is treating it as one project, so I don't know if FWP has any leeway to say, okay, we're uncertain on our legal ground on Riverbend, go ahead and build this. Kind of is a trail, little bit of a trail to nowhere, but it does connect into the landing, so.
So we don't know if they would let us phase the construction, in other words.
Correct, yeah. We're hoping that because we applied for a 124 and given their representations, and they certainly weren't assurances, but what they indicated in our meeting with them is they do have more leeway to work with a 124 than they do with a 310. Because they basically just told Casey no. Like there's no options, just no. So we're hoping they won't tell us the same thing. We're hoping we'll get some leeway with maybe with a condo association, or with a different design, so.
Okay.
Question, Angie, and this goes a little bit to Ben's, is this an agreement that we should file of record on the property, essentially as a lien? And so that it's of record and it has to be paid out at closing on each one of those units? Would that make some sense?
It does make sense. I don't know that we'd file it as a lien, but I think we could file it with the clerk and recorder because it's going to cloud title.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, and I can add that on the agreement as well. And I think that makes a lot of sense, Frank.
I think it does. I don't want to otherwise mess up Casey's accounting issues that he may have, but that seems fair in terms of assurances.
If it's running with the property, then I think it's wise to
Either
record it.
that or personal guarantee would work fine.
Okay.
I think would be another good way to manage that.
I think when people buy those condos, I think that's really a good point. If we file with the clerk and recorder, their title search is going to come up with this agreement, so.
There you
Okay.
go. Okay.
I like it.
Thanks. Occasionally I have a good idea. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to reflect that due to audio, Giuseppe dropped out of the virtual meeting and is attending by YouTube, but so he will not be included in your vote.
Okay. does he want to send you a text of his vote, or no? We'll
No,
just do it
we'll
there?
just because he's not on the teams, he is no longer attending the meeting.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Sorry, Giuseppe. Any further discussion? I would entertain a motion.
If, does the change that Frank described, does that require us to amend this in any way?
I don't think it requires you to amend it, just maybe some direction towards staff that it's to be recorded. Basically, all it is a little block at the top, and then we just send it to the county and record it. So, I mean, if you guys are more comfortable asking me to record it, that's fine. I will take an amendment. If not, then I think it's more ministerial than it is actually a substantive amendment to the agreement. But again, I will happily take a motion if you guys are more comfortable like that. I like a good record.
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I would move to approve the Miles Avenue Condominium Trail Agreement with the change that the agreement will be filed on title to the property going forward.
Seconded by Councilor Norton. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign, and the matter passes unanimously. Get her done. Next, we have communications from our city manager, Dana.
Wonderful. You have my written manager's report in the packet, but I do have a couple updates that I'd like to provide to you. On Saturday, the City Council held a retreat, and I was able to speak with Chief Kelch about some of the comments and things you'd like us to look into regarding open containers, City Council safety and security of the City Hall, and then Halloween and street closures. My question to you is, we've discussed it, we have some information to provide. Would you be interested in holding a short work session on the 7th? We do have some time available on that work session where you could have an open conversation with Police Chief Kelch and I.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay.
All agree?
Okay.
Let's
Great.
do it.
And then there was an email sent out. Mayor Mulfeld brought up adjusting our city council, the city's goals, the city council goals, to include a community wildfire protection plan. In seeing the interest in responses from city councilors, I did reach out to our Captain Fosnot, Ben Fosnot. He's actually the wildland fire guy for our fire department, and talked to him about that type of a plan, and he was very supportive of it. Obviously, that would require a consulting firm to assist in that process. It's important to know, though, that the county is right now working with the state to update the Western Region Hazard Mitigation Plan. So we've been working with them to give them our information. There is information about the WUI and wildfire and ways that we're intending to mitigate it. But this plan would be more specific to the city of Whitefish and surrounding areas. Potentially, I think a consultant would be very helpful to get the county representatives there, Big Mountain Fire District, Whitefish Fire Service area, you name it. We've got a lot of people in this area that would need to be part of this plan. But in doing so, I was actually speaking with Dave as well, and we have an opportunity through the Montana League of Cities and Towns that we are updating our grant application. They're going to actually apply on behalf of 11 cities that are subject to Senate Bill 382. And in there, because part of the growth policy will look at environmental risks as we look at the build out of the city, we are going to include that as an item to apply for funding. And so we'll see if we're lucky in that. If we don't get funding for that, and council, as we go through a resolution update for the council goals, and you do set that as a goal, I do feel that we have reserves in our fire fund to pay for a study like this. It's a one-time cost. It's not, an ongoing employee cost that you get concerned about spending down reserves for. So I'm going to take the direction I've seen through email with at least 4 interested members of the council to bring that forward at the next council meeting to amend your goals. And we're applying for a grant for that plan. So that's my update today. Hopefully that helps Richard some with his concerns too. Maybe not all of them, but I feel like we could address the evacuation routes, the zones, and those things through that type of a plan.
You can count me in support of that as well.
Okay.
I didn't have time to go through it all today at school.
Yep. Thanks, Steve.
Dana, my entreaty to us is that I think we should be mindful of the of timing, and I appreciate the League of Cities and Towns going to bat and going to file for this. I think we need to think in terms of what we need in terms of moving this thing forward, and I think sooner is really more important than where we get the money at this point. I mean, I think it's important to take care of that, but I think given its importance to this community and the risks associated with it, I think we need to move it on our timeline. If we can get them to come along with this, I think that'd be a better idea, but we'll have a work session or whatever you want on it to get definitive direction.
Wrong way. We can discuss that at the next meeting with the resolution,
Yep.
but I do believe that there's ways to move forward and still potentially receive grant funding, but also continue that project forward before that
Great.
grant is awarded. That grant's awarded fairly fast compared to other grants. The application deadline is the middle of October. You know, I say fast, but June is when we received notice.
Right.
So it is like a 9-month period. Hopefully they've gotten faster, but I understand the urgency, and so
No,
we can always readjust that as well.
I think council will have that discussion at the time, but from a personal perspective, I think it is one of some urgency.
And even so, the grant, it might just not be creating the plan, but implementation of the plan. So I believe that the grant funding regardless should be applied for, because there's going to be implementation strategies and actions that come out of a plan like that we could utilize funding for.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Any questions for Dana on her report? Not seeing any. We move on to communications from city councilors. And I'll start with you, Andy. Is it? Yeah. Oh, we do, okay. Sorry, I screwed up. Resolution, I guess it's going to be 2443, adopting the compensation philosophy to guide the city on the employees' compensation plan.
I mean, I don't know how much discussion we need. We seem to have gone through it a lot in our workshop and wordsmithed it, and unless anybody has any other changes, I'd be happy to make a motion, so.
Without opposition, I agree.
I would move that we adopt Resolution 24-43, which is a resolution adopting a compensation philosophy to guide the city's employment compensation plan.
And motion seconded by Councilor Norton. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed, like sign, and the matter passes unanimously. Good. Now, on to communications from city councilors this evening. Andy.
I will start briefly. I want to wish Terry a happy 35th anniversary. It's our 35th anniversary today, and I want to really thank her for the 600 plus Mondays that she's loaned me to the city over all of my years sitting up here, and the countless other nights that I've spent sitting somewhere in City Hall or a meeting somewhere anywhere. And so I thank her for that, because as all of you know, it's not always the most pleasant thing to head out the door when someone's at home and they're mad at you or whatever. But anyway, it's like, maybe that's good, when you leave when you're mad, but anyway, but I want to thank her for that and definitely wish her a happy anniversary. So, and that's all.
Rebecca.
I have a few things. First, happy anniversary, Andy and Terry. I think you're one of those couples that your combined energy brings something even more beautiful now that you're together, and our community loves you. Just one thing for Maria. I was at the dog park, and you know that white sign that says dog park on it? They said that it's become a controversy that because we have new signage that you're planning on the corners, but some of the park board members were concerned about it costing $1,000 to remove it or move it. And I know you don't want to compete with our existing signage, but I was wondering if we have anybody in the city that could move it so they don't have to use volunteer funds. They could put it maybe at the front of the entrance or something, or does it actually have to be removed? Because it was, I guess there's some historical sentiment because it was put there by the, I think it was the Scouts maybe?
It was put there by the WAG board, but they worked with the Whitefish High School students to create the lettering. So the park board has been discussing this issue, and the sign does need to be rotated when we install the new monument signs. If the WAG board is having difficulty rotating that, the last communication that I had with them, which was just at the end of last week, was that they were ready to have someone rotate it October 7th, who this individual is already working on other construction within the dog park. So I have not been told that they're having a challenge rotating it, but if the president of the WAG board wanted to communicate that with me, we certainly would work with them on making sure that it was not a burden to them.
It was Joni, so she knows about it, so she should call you. I mean, I just figured with all
Let's
of,
have the president give me a call,
Okay.
because that's who I've been communicating with.
yeah, and I just figured we have a lot of public works equipment. I'd hate for it to cost them $1,000. So, all right.
And just as background, I'm on the park board, and just as background, they were going to have to move that and lift it and dig it out in any case. And even if we didn't have to, they had already planned to do this. So this is not a new expense or that they were going to have to incur, Rebecca. That thing is falling over as is. They were going to have to, their plan was always to dig it up and then just reset it. We've just asked them, because of the signage, just to turn it 90 degrees. They can move it if they want to, but all they have to do is turn it 90 degrees. And it's something that they had been planning to do in any case.
Okay, thank you both. Obviously, I'm getting different opinions from conversations, but okay. And the second thing is about the footbridge delay. Is it not going to happen this year then? We had the retreat on Saturday, and Craig told us it might be delayed till October, but you're not sure yet because of the Army Corps of Engineers now involved.
Sounds like you know the story.
Okay, is that, so we might
Yeah,
not.
the Army Corps of Engineers is, we're still waiting on the permitting from them, but the plan is still that we could do it in October. October would really be an ideal time to do it. We're at low water, and so we really would prefer not to delay until the spring, because we don't want to do it when it's high water. We'd rather do it now. So the permitting is underway. We received notification from DEQ today that we've received their conditions, and we're working on the floodplain permit, the 124 with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and the Army Corps.
Oh, okay, so we're waiting on 3 permits to be approved.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then one other thing is, I just want to remind people to check your voting status. We still do have same-day voting. That got challenged but reversed, I think. But I called the election department, and you have until October 8th to register to vote. You have to bring in proof of residency and ID and all that. But after that, you would have to show up in person instead of by absentee voting. And the election this year is November 5th, and it's a very important one. We usually have a really great turnout when it's a general election, so it's good to plan ahead for your voting this year. Thank you.
Ben?
No real comments this evening, but I did want to make an observation that the gentleman who enjoys driving his golf cart has gone to great effort to ask us about this golf cart ordinance. Is this an appropriate time to discuss that?
I think we can raise it, and yes, go right ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What do we think, or Chief Kelch, what do you think?
So I've, actually this conversation or this topic's been brought up a few times in my tenure with the city, and I've always encouraged citizens to reach out and read the law and then make recommendations to the council to bring this forward. I personally, I don't have an issue with it, safety-wise for the city. We have a lot of different vehicles, bicycles, those type of things on the roadway. Missoula and West Yellowstone have ordinances that allow golf carts, and they're quite a bit different. One requires insurance, one does not, certain speed limits. So it's most definitely something we could design just for the city of Whitefish that works with our infrastructure. You can limit speed zones, locations, those type of things. So I think it's a good idea to look at it, and it's a great alternative to vehicles and electric vehicles to be on the roadway. So I would encourage to look at it and see what we can come up with to see what fits our needs as Whitefish.
I would certainly be in support of that. Everybody here? I think you got to go ahead, Richard. Thanks. Is that good for you? Good for me. Thank you. Steve?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Oh. No. It's not time for that. You know that. With this evening, and I will also like to congratulate Andy, and I will also give a shout out to my wife of 41 years, who we will be celebrating our anniversary tomorrow night. And she is, as I suggested on Sunday or Saturday at our retreat, her view of life is that she's kind of given one to the church. I'm that one that she gave to the church because I've been gone so many Monday nights and so many things. So, and for those of you who know the old joke, it was the Catholic families used to give one of their kids to the church, either as a nun or a priest. That was what the deal was. But anyway, so there you go. With that, I think we're adjourned. Thanks so much.